All right. Hello, doctors. Welcome back to Pirates of Medicine. Today we are back with the anatomy based solution video. This is going to be the last video in this series. So, with this video, we are going to complete our anatomy based solutions. So, before we start, a quick shout out to our Telegram channel. So we have this channel on Telegram, Pirates of Medicine for Croc 1. You can see we post daily quizzes over here. We post all our video links over here. And also we post explanations to these questions that we ask in the, like for example, this question we asked about the interscalene space. And we also provide explanations to these questions in the Telegram channel as well. So many questions, all the video links, quick revision notes you can see. So all you have to do is you can go and follow or join our Telegram channel from the link given in the description, or you can copy this link. You can remember it. You can go to Telegram and search Pirates of Medicine, and there it is. So that's all from the Telegram channel. Anyway, without any further ado, let's get back to the anatomy base. So 121 question is that while performing an operation in the area of axillary crease, a surgeon has to define an arterial vessel which is surrounded by the fascicles of the brachial plexus. So what artery is it? So we have the axillary artery, which is the direct continuation of the subclavian artery, which is found in the clavicular region. It lies in the axillary cavity, and you can see in the medial of the shoulder joint and the humerus, the axillary cavity is present over there, and the nerve fasciculi of the brachial plexus are present on its side, both laterally and medially. So it has many branches like the superior thoracic, the acromiothoracic, the lateral thoracic. It has the subscapular artery, which gives two branches, the circumflex scapular and the thoracodorsal, and the anterior and posterior circumflex humeral arteries are also branches of axillary arteries. These arteries and its branches, they supply various muscles of the upper limbs. They supply the skin of the upper limb. You can note it down, but according to the localization, our answer here is the axillary artery, because it is present in the brachial, between the nerve fasciculi of the brachial plexus in the axillary cavity. That is why the answer here is axillary artery. Correct? Good. So you can see over here, these are the branches of the axillary artery. Yes, see, this is present in the axillary cavity. So the 122 question today is that examination of a patient with impaired blood coagulation revealed thrombosis of a branch of inferior mesenteric artery. Which bowel segment is damaged? So if you remember that we studied the various arteries of the large intestine and small intestine, when at that time we studied that the inferior mesenteric artery supplies the branches to the transverse colons, 1/3 distal part, to the sigmoid colon, and the sigmoid colon is supplied by the sigmoid artery, which is a branch of inferior mesenteric artery. Correct? So this is why the answer here is sigmoid colon, which is supplied by a branch of inferior mesenteric artery, because all the other options are not supplied by the inferior mesenteric artery. Transverse colons, distal 1/3 part is supplied by inferior mesenteric, but the superior, the proximal 2/3, it is supplied by the superior mesenteric artery. So that is why the answer here is sigmoid colon, because it is supplied by the sigmoid artery, which is a branch of inferior mesenteric artery. You can see here, middle colic artery supplies right 2/3 of transverse colon. So that is why we will go for sigmoid colon. Okay, 123 question is that a patient was admitted to the surgical department with inguinal hernia. During the operation, the surgeon performs plastic surgery on the posterior wall of inguinal canal. What structure forms this wall? So, inguinal canal. So, inguinal canal is a short passage that extends inferiorly and medially through the inferior part of abdominal wall, and it serves as a pathway by which many structures can pass from the abdomen to the external genitalia. So it is of clinical importance because it is a very potential space in which herniation can occur. Correct? It is a common site of herniation. And what are the contents of inguinal canal? You should remember. First of all, the funiculus spermaticus or the spermatical cord in males. In females, the round ligament of uterus. Also the ilioinguinal nerve and the genital branch of the genitofemoral nerve. So these are the contents of the inguinal canal. Now let's talk about the walls of inguinal canal. So a simple mnemonic to remember what the walls of the inguinal canal are made of. So malt, the whiskey one. So malt, which means the superior wall, this one is made up of M. Superior wall M is made up of inferior oblique muscle and transverse abdominis muscle. So from muscle you can remember it with M. The anterior wall, it is made up of A. Correct? A for aponeurosis. So aponeurosis of external and internal oblique muscles. Then we have the inferior wall or the floor. Floor is made by ligaments, the inguinal and lacunar ligaments. And L again we have for floor. Then the posterior wall, the back wall, it is made up by T, correct, for transverse fascia and conjoint tendon. So they asked what is the posterior wall made of in the question, correct? The posterior wall we just now found out, it is made up of the transverse fascia and conjoint tendon, and out of the options we have transverse fascia, and that is the answer, correct? So let's go to the next one. Oh, also there are two openings of the inguinal ring, by the way. The deep internal ring, it is found in the midpoint of the inguinal ligament, and the ring is created by transverse fascia. Rings are the two openings of the inguinal canal. Obviously, if it is a canal, it will have two openings, right? So the internal opening or the deep opening is located here in the abdomen, and the ring is formed by the transverse fascia. The superficial or external ring, which opens into the external genitalia, it is the end of the inguinal canal, and it is formed by the evagination of the external oblique muscle. So quick facts before we go to 124th question, which reads that a man with an injury of the dorsal area of his neck was admitted to the resuscitation department. What muscle occupies this area? So a question about the localization of a muscle in the area of the neck, specifically the dorsal area of the neck. Out of all the options, we need to see that where these options are located, because this is how we are going to answer this question. So first of all, our answer, trapezius muscles. Let's look at it. This is the site of localization of trapezius muscles. You can see it is like a trapezoid it is trapezoid in shape, and it is located in the dorsal area of the neck and the dorsal area of the back. Correct? So this is trapezius. And from here only we can see that this is the answer, but let's anyway check all the other options. Then we have sternocleidomastoid, which is a muscle located bilaterally on both sides of the neck. So this is right sternocleidomastoid, and the left one is located on the other side. Then we have the latissimus dorsi, which is a muscle of the back, and you can see here it is not located anywhere near the dorsal surface of the neck. And sternocleidomastoid is also located in the lateral part of neck, not on the back side. Then we have the rhomboid minor and rhomboid major, which are again the muscles of the back. They are not located on the dorsal surface of neck. And the anterior scalene, middle scalene, and the posterior scalene also, they are located on the lateral part of the neck, not on the dorsal part. So that is why the answer is trapezius muscle. 125 is that a patient complains of dizziness and hearing loss. What nerve is damaged? So remember, vestibulocochlear nerve, the 8th cranial nerve. It is also known as the auditory and vestibular nerve. It transmits the information related to auditory impulses and the sense of balance and equilibrium to the cortex. So, if there is a disorder of dizziness and hearing loss, then the vestibulocochlear cranial nerve must be injured. Pretty simple. Good. 126. While palpating the mammary gland of a patient, a doctor revealed an induration in form of a node in the inferior medial quadrant. Metastasis may extend to the following lymph nodes. So remember, to answer all the questions related to mammary gland tumors or mammary gland cancer, breast cancer, you need to know that cancer spreads to the closest lymph nodes. Correct? So the closest lymph node to the mammary glands are, we have the axillary lymph nodes, we have the apical lymph nodes, you can see here, correct? We have the parasternal lymph nodes. So out of all the options given here, the parasternal lymph nodes are the closest, and that is why the answer is parasternal. Now it may come to your mind, what if you have to find out which is between axillary and parasternal, what if both are given in the options? They won't give such question, but sometimes they may give both of them. Like in option A or option B, it can be parasternal and axillary. In option C, it can be bronchopulmonary and parasternal. So in that case, go for parasternal and axillary because it would be more correct answer. Correct? So 127 is that a patient got a trauma that caused dysfunction of the motor centers which regulate the activity of head muscles. In what part of cerebral cortex is the respective center normally located? So we talked about the gyrus of the brain in a previous video. I asked you to note it down. If you did, you would remember the inferior part of the precentral gyrus contains the motor center which regulates the activity of head muscles. That is why the answer here is inferior part of precentral gyrus. Superior part, motor analyzer for activity of lower limbs. And then in the third option, C option, we have supramarginal gyrus, which is the nuclei of motor analyzer of learned purposeful movements. Then we have the superior parietal lobule, which is involved in somatosensory activity, which is called as specific somatosensory activity, in which your cortex analyzes the cortex part of superior parietal lobule. It analyzes like the sense of feeling an object and knowing what it is, which is called as stergognosis. That is the function of superior parietal lobule. And then angular gyrus is responsible for visual analyzer of written speech. So 128, examination of a 6-month-old child revealed a delay in closure of the occipital fontanelle when it should be normally be closed. So we have these fontanelles which are present in the newborn. So actually these fontanelles are gaps or openings between the bones of the skull. So we have 4 major fontanelles: the posterior, the sphenoid, the mastoid, and anterior. Let's look at them. So the anterior fontanelle is present over here in the anterior part between the parietal bones and the frontal bones. The posterior fontanelle is present between the parietal bone and the occipital bone, and the sphenoid between the sphenoid bone, the parietal bone, and the frontal bone, and the mastoid between the occipital bone, the parietal bone, and the zygomatic bone. Correct? Temporal bone, I'm sorry. So these are the various fontanelles, and as the baby grows up, these fontanelles close and the skull's bones, they fuse together. So what is the function of these fontanelles? Basically the function of these fontanelles is to because if they are present, it is very easier for the baby's skull to come out during the process of parturition from the mother's cervix canal. So because of these fontanelles, the skull's bones, they can move freely, like not move a lot, but they can get compressed and it doesn't cause any much fracture or anything. So this is the significance of this biologically, and with age they close. For the first fontanelle to be closed is the posterior fontanelle. It generally closes around 2 to 3 months after the birth. Then the sphenoidal fontanelle follows and closes around 6 months. The mastoid fontanelle is third one to be closed, and it closes around 6 to 18 months after the birth. And the anterior fontanelle is the last one to close, and it takes around 12 to 24 months to close. So in the question, they asked that the occipital fontanelle, the posterior fontanelle, when it should be closed? It should be closed around 3 months. Correct? It should be closed around 2 to 3 months, and that is why the answer is around 3 months. So let's go to the next one. So 129 is that a patient was diagnosed with the paralysis of the facial and masticatory muscles. The hematoma is inside the genu of internal capsule. What conduction tract is damaged? So if you remember about the question related to internal capsule, I told you That the internal capsule is the link of external band of white matter that links the cortex to the subcortical structures like corpus luteum, thalamus, and brainstem. So it is basically like a canal through which various tracts and nerves go through. Correct. So the nerves go through either the anterior limb or the genu, which is a knee-like thing, and the posterior limb. So the tract that goes through the genu of the internal capsule is the corticobulbar or corticonuclear tract, and this, you know, that corticonuclear tract is responsible for motor function of the head muscles. Correct. So that is why here the hematoma is inside the genu. So the conduction tract that must be damaged, which led to paralysis of facial and masticatory muscles, is the corticonuclear or corticobulbar tract. So pretty simple. And remember that the corticospinal tract is located in the posterior limb, and all the other tracts like frontopontine, thalamicocortical, they travel in the anterior limb, and in the genu we have the corticobulbar or corticonuclear tract. 130 is that a patient has lost skin sensitivity in the region of medial surface of his shoulder. This is the result of dysfunction of the following nerve. So remember, we have the cutaneous nerves, the medial brachial and the medial antebrachial, which are the major cutaneous nerves which supply the medial portion of our upper limbs. The medial brachial or the arm, they supply the sensory innervation to the inferior portion of the medial side of the arm, and the medial antebrachial for forearm, it supplies the sensory innervation to the skin of the arm, which overlying the biceps muscle and some of the biceps muscle, and the skin of the medial side of the forearm. So you can see this is the supply of the medial brachial cutaneous nerve. This is the supply of medial antebrachial cutaneous nerve. So here that is why the answer is medial brachial cutaneous nerve, because skin sensitivity is lost in the medial surface of the shoulder over here. Yes, this is the shoulder, yes, and medial surface is sensory supplies by the medial brachial cutaneous nerve. 131 question is the foreign body closed space of the right superior lobar bronchus. What segments of the right lung won't be supplied with air? So if you remember, superior lobar bronchus they are asking about. So I told you that the bronchopulmonary segments can be divided by this way, that the right lung has three lobes, the upper, the middle and the lower lobe, and the right superior lobe has three segments, the apical, the posterior and interior. On the other hand, the left lung superior lobe has apical posterior, anterior, and lingula superior and lingula inferior. So this is the difference between right and left lung. Right lung has upper lobe, middle lobe and lower lobe, while the left lung has upper lobe and lower lobe, which both have 5 and 5 segments. Here, right lung's lower lobe has the same 5 segments like the left lung's lower lobe, but the upper lobe and middle lobe have divided segments. Right lung superior lobe has 3, apical, posterior and anterior, and right lung's middle lobe has 2, lateral segment and medial segment. And that is why the answer here is apical, posterior and anterior, because the superior lobar bronchus is closed. So apical, posterior, anterior. 132. A patient was diagnosed with Bartholinitis, inflammation of the greater vulvovaginal glands. In which organ of the urogenital system are these glands localized? So we did this question before. Bartholin glands are the vestibular glands or greater vestibular glands, which are 2 pea-sized glands located in the labia majora. These are the Bartholin glands present over here. They are located in the labia majora, and they surround the vagina, and they secrete mucus to lubricate the vagina, and they are homologous to the bulbourethral glands in the males. So remember, Bartholin's glands are located in the labia majora, and they can also mention the labia majora as the large lips of pudendum or something like that, because of Crockton translations, large lips of pudendum. So the answer is labia majora. 133. After performing an inguinal canal operation on the account of hernia, a surgeon damaged the canal's content. What exactly was damaged? I just told you what contents are there in the inguinal canal. We have the spermatic cord in male, we have the round ligament in the females, and we have the ilioinguinal nerve in both of them, and genital branch of genitofemoral nerve in both the sexes as well. So out of all the options, we have the funiculus spermaticus, the spermatic cord. So I think this should be the right one, isn't it? So the thing to notice here is that they have also given the round ligament of the uterus in the options. So they have not mentioned that if the patient is male or female. But the thing to remember it by is that in case of males, there are more chances of inguinal hernia. Like the probability or the epidemiology statistics are that the males suffer from inguinal hernia more. So that is why we need to answer it according to the perspective of a male patient, and the answer is funiculus spermaticus. This will happen only in croc, don't worry. But go for funiculus spermaticus if it is present in the option. If it is not, go for round ligament of uterus. 134. Ultrasonic examination of a patient revealed aneurysm in the area of aortic arc that caused alternation of vocal function of larynx. What nerve was constricted? So let's talk about the nervous supply of the larynx, the voice box. So the larynx receives both motor and sensory innervation from the branches of vagus nerve. Correct. So we have two nerves which are from the branches of vagus nerve. First of all, you can see over here, we have the superior laryngeal nerve which branches from the vagus nerve at the level of the superior part of the neck, and it innervates the larynx. But then the vagus nerves give another branch at the level of the aorta, the left recurrent laryngeal nerve. On the other side, it would be right recurrent laryngeal nerve. So the recurrent laryngeal nerve is branches of the vagus nerve at the level of the aortic arc. It twists around the aortic arc and has a recurrent path and comes back and innervates the larynx. So two branches which innervates the larynx. And the recurrent laryngeal nerve supplies motor innervation to all the internal muscles of the larynx except the cricothyroid. The superior laryngeal nerve supplies the sensory innervation to the supraglottis, and the recurrent laryngeal supplies sensory innervation to the infraglottis, and the superior laryngeal nerve provides motor innervation to the remaining intrinsic muscle, the cricothyroid muscle, which the recurrent laryngeal does not apply. So the significance of this is that if there is a swelling of the aortic arc or any tumor of the aortic arc, then what happens, the recurrent laryngeal nerve can get pressed. So compression can lead to various symptoms that can be seen in the larynx. So you can see aneurysm of the aortic arc caused alternation of the vocal function. So the nerve that was constricted here was recurrent laryngeal. Because it does a 360, it travels back and goes to the larynx from below the aortic arc. Understood? So 135, surgical approach to the thyroid gland from the transverse collar approach involves opening of an intra-aponeurotic suprasternal space. So what anatomic structure located in this space is dangerous to be damaged? So first of all, this intra-aponeurotic suprasternal space they are talking about is the space of Burns or the suprasternal space. The suprasternal space or the space of Burns is a narrow space between the superficial and deep layers of the investing fascia, deep cervical fascia, and you can see this is the suprasternal space. And important, what are the contents of this space of Burns? So we have the suprasternal lymph nodes. You can see these lymph nodes. The sternocleidoid muscles head. This is the sternocleidoid muscle. Yes, sternocleidomastoid, and its head is present in the space of Burns. The anterior jugular veins anastomosis, which is the jugular venous arc, and also the interclavicular ligament. These are present in the space of Burns. And out of all these options, what is present in the out of all these contents, what is present in the options, the jugular venous arc can be damaged if the surgeon approach to the thyroid gland is laggy or not perfect. So that is why the answer is jugular venous arc. 136, in course of a small pelvis operation, it became necessary to ligate an ovarian artery. what formation may be accidentally ligated together with it. So if you remember, I told you that in course of the operations in the like reproductive system, the operations of the reproductive system and the urinary system, what you need to remember is that the ureters, they lie very closely to the uterine artery and the ovarian artery. So sometimes what happens is that incidentally they can be ligated or they can be cut, because normally ureters and the arteries in surgical fields, they may look same, and accidentally the surgeon can cut them by accident. So ureter can be accidentally ligated together with the ovarian artery because it lies close to it. So that is why the answer is ureter. You can even look at this is the ureter, and they lie very close to the ovarian artery and even very close to the uterine artery as well. So the answer is ureter. 137. An injured person was delivered to the hospital with a penetrating wound in the left lateral region of the abdomen. What part of the large intestine is most likely damaged? So there is a penetrating wound, note, in the left lateral region of the abdomen. So if we divide the abdomen into various space, here we have the epigastric region, the left hypochondriac region, the right hypochondriac region, and then here we have the umbilical region where the umbilicus is present, and you can note down all these, you can draw it. But remember, they asked about left lateral region. The left lateral region is also called as the left lumbar region. And what is present here? We have the descending colon, we have the small intestine, and we have the left kidney. The major part of descending colon can be seen. So if there is an injury to the left lateral region, then the answer here, that the large intestine's part which is most likely damaged, is the descending colon or colon descendens. So you can note it down like this is how we divide the abdomen into 9 different regions. 9 different regions of the abdomen contain these structures of the abdomen. 138. After a road accident, a driver was delivered to the hospital with an injury of the medial epicondyle of the humerus. What nerve might be damaged? So the funny nerve or funny bone, correct? So ulnar nerve, it moves right next to the medial epicondyle of the ulnar nerve, moves right next to the medial epicondyle of the ulna, correct? Or the humerus, I'm sorry. So that is why the answer is ulnar nerve. Simple. Medial epicondyle of humerus is injured, then the ulnar nerve must be damaged because it is very next to it, and you would see all the damage, all the impairment of the functions of the ulnar nerve, the motor function and the sensory functions. So we talked about this before. And also 139, a patient with a knife wound in the left lumbar part was delivered to the emergency hospital. In course of an operation, a surgeon found that the internal organs were not damaged, but the knife injured one of the muscles of the renal pelvis. What muscle is it? So, because there is an injury to the left lumbar part, so there must be a damage of a muscle which is present in the left lumbar part of the person, correct? Near to the lumbar vertebra. So let's talk about each muscle one at a time. The psoas major, you can see, is a muscle located in the midline of the posterior abdominal wall, and you can see its heads originating from the lumbar vertebra, correct? So it is located over here and more posteriorly, like superficially. It is a superficial muscle. Then we have the iliacus muscle, which arises in the iliac fossa on the interior side of the hip bone, and you can see this green. This is the iliacus muscle. So both of them together, they form the iliaco-psoas muscle. And then we have the erector spinae muscle, which originate near the spectrum, and these are vertical muscular fibers which run upwards. So they are deep muscles of the vertebra. So they help the spine to stay erect and straight. So they are located deep, correct? Even though they are located in the region of lumbar vertebra, but they are located deep and not so as much superficially as the psoas major muscle. Okay, then we have the external and internal oblique, which you obviously can see they are located in the interior wall of the abdomen and have nothing to do with the lumbar region. So here a person who has a penetrating wound on the left lumbar part, he must have an injury of the greater psoas muscle. Correct. So that is why the answer is greater psoas muscle. Then 140, we have a 25-year-old patient was examined by a medical board. Examination revealed a pathology of chest. In this pathology, the transverse dimensions were to be small and the sternum was strongly protruding. What chest type it is? So let's talk about pectus carneatum or pigeon chest or protruding sternum. So in this you can see the sternum is prominent and protruding outwards, and it forms an anterior ridge like the keel of the ship. So this is called as a keeled chest. Correct? The keel, the front portion of the ship. You can see this is pectus carneatum or pigeon chest or keeled chest, and it is associated with various congenital abnormalities like cardiac lesions can be there, and coarctation of the aorta is most commonly seen. It is less frequent than pectus excavatum, which we are going to talk about. The male to female ratio is 4:1. The cause is unknown, the etiology is unknown, and a positive family history. It can be say 26% there is chance that if you have pectus carneatum in your family, then you can have pectus carneatum in the baby as well. Talking about pectus excavatum or funnel chest. So you can see from the name itself, the funnel chest, the chest appears to have a depression in it. It is characterized by excessive depression of the sternum and the adjacent ribs, producing a caved in appearance of the rib cage. The first, the second rib, the manubrium sternum are in normal position. The asymmetrical depression may be present and the right is more often depressed than the left. Now these chest abnormalities, you can see that they have a effect on the thoracic organs. So that is why these are dangerous, because sometimes they can cause damage to the internal organs as well, like the heart or the lungs. So here the sternum strongly protruding just gives an answer. This is pectus carneatum or the keeled chest or pigeon chest. That is why the answer is keeled chest. 141. A man with a stab wound in the area of quadrilateral foramen applied to a doctor. Examination revealed that this patient was unable to draw his arm aside from the body. What nerve is most probably damaged? So the patient was not able to draw the nerve aside from the body, and the stab wound is in the area of quadrilateral foramen. So there are three main foramens in the axillary cavity. We have the quadrilateral foramen or the quadrangular space, we have the triangular interval, and we have the triangular space. Note down the contents of these spaces. We have the triangular spaces have the circumflex scapular artery, which is a branch of axillary artery. The triangular interval has the radial nerve and the deep brachial artery, and the quadrangular space or the quadrilateral foramen has the axillary nerve and the posterior circumflex humeral artery. So the quadrilateral foramen containing axillary nerve is most likely damaged in a patient over here, because axillary nerve also supplies the deltoid muscle, and he being not able to draw his arm aside from the body, which means that the stab wound in the area of the quadrilateral foramen must have damaged the axillary nerve. 142. Brain tomography revealed a tumor in the region of red nucleus. What part of brain is damaged? So red nucleus or nucleus rubber is a structure present in the rostral midbrain, and it is involved in motor coordination. You can see red nucleus present here in the midbrain. Correct? In the midbrain we have the pons, we have medulla oblongata, and red nucleus and the interstitial nucleus are present in the midbrain. So red nucleus is pale pink in color, and it is due to presence of iron in hemoglobin and ferritin form. The red nucleus is connected with the cerebellum, the cerebral cortex, and the spinal cord, and it gives out the rubrospinal tract, which enhances the extension of limb flexors and inhibits the antagonistic extensors, which is called as reciprocal inhibition. The function here of the red nucleus is to enhance the excitation of limb flexors and inhibit the extensor muscles of the limb. So This is the end for the anatomy based solution series. The last question was done just now, and with this question the anatomy based solution series is complete. And if you like this video and all the other videos of the anatomy based series, and if you found the whole series successful and helpful in your crock preparation, great. And you can subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And also, few days left for the crock. I hope you have prepared well and you are revising well. And that's all. It's been good. See you in the next one.